another hotspot, turmoil in the Mideast, to tell you about Israel on the defensive once again this morning after an unprecedented airstrike in Qatar targeting Hamas's top leadership. President Trump said he was not thrilled with this. Of note here, Qatar is a close U.S. ally. Clearly, the government there is furious as well, and the UN also expressing outrage, as has the entire Middle East and many European leaders at this point. Israel, though, is defending its action, saying its primary target was Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya, who vowed to repeat October 7-like massacres until Israel, in his words, is annihilated. Hamas is claiming, though, its leadership was not killed in this attack, but they've often said that in the past, only months later to find out that there were successful strikes. Ahead of this airstrike in Qatar, though, Israeli military issued an order to Gaza City residents, we know, to evacuate. As it says, it prepares for an all-out ground defensive against Hamas. So this going on simultaneously. The order impacted 1 million people in Gaza City. Israel says it's set up humanitarian safe zones for the evacuees, but not everyone is ready or even able to leave. And they don't know exactly where to go. And the question remains, is it feasible to evacuate an entire city without chaos or unleashing further humanitarian issues in that region? David Sussman has been our eyes on the ground in Israel, helping us understand the nuances of this conflict. He's joining us from Efrat, Israel, about 20 minutes outside Jerusalem. He is host of Land of the Bible, a professional tour guide as well in that region. Thanks for joining us once again, David. Always something going on, it seems, by the day. And since independent reporting inside Gaza, we know, is restricted by Israel, what do we know about what's happening on the ground there since these evacuation orders were issued?
So very little. I think the news comes out slowly. Reports come out, obviously, from Hamas, and usually those are quite unreliable. And a lot of the myths about this war that has been put forward by Hamas has been debunked. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes weeks. And we know that if you repeat a lie even for a day and then the truth comes out, most people remember the lie. And sometimes it takes weeks for the truth to come out. However, you talked about the limited amount of press in Gaza. I think Gaza, since the beginning of this war, has probably experienced more freedom of press than they have in the last 20 years. Gaza, we take it for granted, freedom of press. We can speak out against our government. We can speak about institutions and organizations that we don't agree with, and that's our freedom. We have the right to do that through freedom of speech and freedom of the media. That does not exist in Gaza. It hasn't existed for 20 years. Hopefully, when Hamas is finally ousted and more liberal values are being able to be brought into that strip of land, maybe they will have freedom of press.
At the same time, the people on the ground, freedom of press or not, Netanyahu has said potentially we're going to have a full invasion of the Gaza Strip to root Hamas out. Where precisely are those people on the ground going to go? Already so much of the Gaza Strip is in ruins. The borders are potentially close to them. What happens to them?
It's a terrible situation. I feel horrible for those individuals that have lost so much due to this war and the unwillingness of Hamas to surrender, to release the hostages, to put an end to this war, and really put an end to the ideology that they have been teaching their children now for 20 years. For 20 years, they have been teaching the form of education that has been brought forth from the Muslim Brotherhood. I urge everybody to look up the Muslim Brotherhood, who Qatar funds and hosts in their country, and also one of their great leaders. I don't want to call him great, but one of their significant leaders, a guy by the name of Sheikh Al-Amin al-Husseini, who was the leader of the Arab people living here in the land of Israel prior to 1948, who sat in the cabinet of Adolf Hitler. And this is the ideology that's been taught to these people. So like freedom of press, which we hope that Gaza will be able to enjoy that in the future, hopefully they'll also be able to enjoy a curriculum that doesn't teach to hate another people and to eliminate Israel. I mean, in the introduction to this segment, you mentioned how the leader of Hamas, who hopefully we eliminated yesterday, said that he is planning to do more October 7th like massacres in the future until Israel is eliminated. Hello, like this is an absolutely genocidal, evil regime, and it's an unfortunate situation. We sure do wish that the people of Gaza would rise up against them, but I have a feeling, and I can't say this for sure, that a lot of the people in Gaza, um, due to the education that they've received, that they are proud to be martyred. They are proud to die for the cause of killing the entire Jewish race from the face of the earth. And those that don't agree with that, I sure wish they would stand up to Hamas. But until then, it's an unfortunate situation that Israel has to fight for their freedom.
What's, David, the response within Israel to Israel's action in Qatar, which we saw in the last day? Going into a sovereign nation and trying to take out the leadership of Hamas and a key U.S. ally?
Yeah. So there's three parts to that question. First was, how do people feel about Israel eliminating leaders of Hamas? And I think we're overjoyed in the same way that we were able to eliminate the leaders of Hezbollah, that we were able to eliminate the threat that was coming out of Syria for a long time. I mean, obviously, there's a new threat there with the Jolani, who was a former ISIS commander, and that we were able to take care of the nuclear threat in Iran with America's help, of course, and also the Houthi leadership. I mean, these are evil regimes that have been funded, many of them by Qatar, and have been given the ideology of the Muslim Brotherhood. Again, look up the Muslim Brotherhood. And when you look at Qatar, who funds the Muslim Brotherhood, who funded Hamas, who allows them to safely live in their country, which has billions and billions of dollars through their oil revenue and natural gas, has been funding terrorist organizations. I mean, this is just a very simple fact for anybody who wants to scratch the surface and do some type of research on it. You'll see that, true, they are an ally because America needs allies in this region. But just because they're an ally, they're definitely not, I wouldn't say that they're a very good regime over there that wants to sponsor things like freedom of the press and wants to give people liberal values that you and I take for granted as being Westerners.
All right, David Sussman, thanks for joining us. We're going to check back with you again in the next hour. Also in the next hour, we're going to hear from a Palestinian-American woman here in the States who fled Gaza for the U.S. in the 1980s when she was a child. She now helps Palestinian refugees and others. She actually opens her home to them. She's been in touch with evacuees, and we're going to ask her for her take on what's happening in that region, that volatile part of the world.